everybody. So I'm going to be talking about what you would maybe find in a typical Caribbean house. So I come from a Jamaican background, so I'm going to lay out my scarf here so it shows your Jamaican colours. Yeah. So as a child I remember that bedtime was your Milo. So that's one thing that you'll typically find in a Caribbean household, your Milo. And usually your Milo is you drink it with coronation milk or Nestle's milk to sweeten it. Also as a child, you would always find in your fridge a packet of saltfish, or codfish people know it as. We knew it as children as saltfish. And with saltfish, Mum or Dad would always have in your cupboard a tin of Akki. So that was your typical meal just there. So you'd have your Akki and saltfish together, and then they would either do rice or they would have hard foods. So some of the hard foods that you may have, one of them that I've got today is your plantain. It's a bit battered, but that's your plantain. So you could either boil it as the green banana type, or fry it, or even put it in the oven to roast. So that would make a meal there. Also in your typical Caribbean household, you would find maybe a jar of jerk seasoning. So that was your jerk seasoning chicken, or your chicken. Also, one of the traditional things that you'd find is your can of Bunga peas. But back in the day, Mum would say, is laziness that? As Caribbean children, you have to make sure you have a packet of the real Bunga peas. So that the Bunga peas, you would wash them the night before and you would soak them with maybe garlic or something like that to prepare for the next day with your rice and peas. So this was classed as lazy man, because all you're doing is opening the tin and adding it. But if you're a true Caribbean or a true Jamaican, you would have your pack of peas where you would put it to soak the night before. Next in our house, you'd have your creamed coconut. Again, that would go with the rice and peas. But I didn't bring one today, but usually the lazy type one would be your coconut milk. And Mum would say, lazy man food that. You must have your creamed coconut always in your fridge, that you cut off a bulk and you put it to cook with your seasoned peas and your thyme. And I bought some thyme today because that's another thing that you'd always find in a Caribbean home. Your fresh thyme. And you would find that most Caribbean families had their thyme growing in their garden. So that's your fresh thyme. Also in my bag, every Caribbean home usually has one of these or the real McCoy, and that's your Scotch Bonnet, your hot pepper sauce. And a meal was not complete without the hot pepper sauce. Also in your Caribbean home, you'd find the ginger. If you didn't have ginger in your house, you wasn't Caribbean, because ginger them say cure everything. If you have a little gas, boil the ginger. If you have something else and you're not feeling well, boil the ginger. That's all what we was told as children. So that's another item that you'll find in a Caribbean house. In my Caribbean house, with my parents, you had your nutmegs, your fresh nutmeg. You'd grate and add it to your cornmeal porridge or your oatmeal porridge. So I got your packet of cornmeal. Again, this was found in your typical Caribbean house. So your cornmeal wasn't the same without your fresh nutmeg. So your nutmeg, you would grate and add it to your porridge. Also in your Caribbean home was your bottle of rum. But usually it would be your Ray and nephew, your bottle of rum. And it wasn't drunk, always for if you're sick. So if you're sick, you had a little bit of this and this would cure you. So I never saw my parents really drink that, but they would mix it up in concoctions and give it you as a child. And next thing they would use and have in their Caribbean home is a bottle of bay rum. So if you wasn't feeling well, they would open the bottle and tell you, sniff this, and that would help you to like release sinuses problems that you may have. But every Caribbean home tends to have a bottle of bay rum. In your Caribbean home, in your cupboard, your bottle of vanilla. And this would always complete your cornmeal porridge. So you'd have your nutmeg, your bottle of vanilla, and your Nestle's milk or your Coronation milk to add to that. Typical Caribbean home again would be your water crackers. And back in Jamaica or even here, as a child, we would have crackers. So if we didn't have bread or anything like that, we would eat crackers and sardines, or when mum or dad used to make the porridge, we'd have the crackers that would maybe break up and add to the porridge. So this is an item that you'll always find in most Caribbean homes. What else? Your good old faithful Surisi tea. Never liked it as a child. But you knew, mum always used to say, well, when you're sick, this is always good for when you're sick. It helps cure everything. Bush tea. That's what it's known as, bush tea. Even though as a child I didn't like it, but now as an adult I know it's good for me, so I will drink it. And as a child we used to add either sugar or honey to take away some of the bitterness, but now I will drink it literally without any of that. And that's your common tea in a West Indian home. Your other common tea in your West Indian home was your peppermint tea. So your peppermint tea again was good to bring up the little gas. If you got a little headache or something like that, they always used to say, go drink a mint tea. Or you'd find that some families would grow mint tea. So like how you'd grow your herbs, like your thyme, some families would grow mint in their garden. So we as children had mint in our garden. And even now, in my adulthood, I have mint plants. And the last items that I've brought today, what you'd always find in your Caribbean cupboard, is your chicken noodle soup. So your chicken noodle soup, it had to have that in it. And you'd have your hard food, so that could be yam, boiled banana, your boiled dumplings, but a soup wasn't a soup unless it had one of these packets in. So you'd have your chicken soup, your cock soup, which I never knew what the difference was because chicken and cock isn't it the same family? But still, this is what we would always find in our parents' cupboard. And in mine now. And then your last thing is that when you're making soup, you always have to make sure you have your vegetable noodle soup as well. So that is just a few examples of things that you would find in some Caribbean homes, but I'm coming from a Jamaican Caribbean home, and as a child, these are some of the items that I would see in my parents' cupboard, which I've followed on now in adulthood, so these are all from my current home now.